Hello, friends and listeners from all across the globe. Thank you so much for tuning back into another episode of The Yogi Show. Here we are, my friends, on episode number 4. Yogi, Brian, and I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and going down the rabbit hole with the yoga couple. Matt and Ash are contemporary teachers of self-realization from the millennial generation. Their fresh outlook on yoga philosophy and meditation is down to earth and accessible for all. Their mission is to bridge the gap between Western psychology and Eastern philosophy, especially when it comes to navigating relationships. They are the creators and authors of the Inner Work book, which we deep dive into in this episode. They are also the hosts of the Inner Work podcast, which I had the pleasure of being on as a guest. I was actually their first guest last year. And together they reside on the big island of Hawaii. Big shout out to Hilo. They host retreats there and teach mindful living. This episode was super fun. It was a pleasure connecting with them. I feel like Alice in Wonderland in that meme where the trapdoor opens and the deep dive down the rabbit hole happens. There's a whole world underneath there. That's how I felt during this episode. We will see you on the other side, my friends. Namaste. We are so excited to have the yoga couple on the show today. Matt and Ash, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. We're so excited.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. For taking the time, to make this happen and make this call happen. I think back to the moment when I was on your podcast last year and how special that was. It was like one of the first or second podcast recording I ever did. And to be in your energy and just dive in. It was so cool. And to now be on the other end of the mic with Brian doing this thing, it is truly it's like a full circle kind of thing, I feel like, in this moment. So amazing.
Yeah, you were actually our very first guest that we ever had on the Inner Work podcast. So it is totally full circle, and we are so honored to be here.
That is awesome.
I was the first one.
Totally. You were our very first guest.
I think I remember that now that you're saying it, but wow, now I'm even feeling more special. Yeah. Super cool. Super cool. So you guys are amazing. And the reason we wanted to have you guys on was you guys are killing on Instagram. You're making these amazing books. You're having these retreats, these deep rabbit hole retreats. And Brian and I always talk about the rabbit hole. And I was if we're going down the rabbit hole, we are going to call Matt and Ash and we are getting them on the show because they are they know all about it. They know all about it,
Love it
so
too.
We want to know more. We want to know more about it immediately, So before we get into that, how did you guys meet and make this amazing human experience better by, connecting? How did you guys meet?
Oh my gosh. So Matt and I
met.
Cliff
Notes. If it's 4 hours.
Right.
No, it's pretty, Ash has got a pretty good condensed version, but I think the first thing before we even get into how we met is we really were super conscious. Speaking of the rabbit hole, we were okay, my theory on relationships is when you're searching for anyone who's single, looking for that perfect conscious person, I always am we're all connected, so they can already technically hear you right now.
Wow.
And so for Ashley and I, we actually I very consciously called her into my life because I was really ready to find that soul companion, my spiritual companion in this life. And so I literally would pray to her and talk to her and be I know you're out there. You're going to find me. We're going to find each other. And I love you. And I'd start to kind of just make it little things throughout my day to kind of connect with her. And then sure enough, Ash will tell you how it all unfolded.
Yeah, it's wild. I actually had a boyfriend at the time, and we were kind of on this crossroads of, are we going to stay together? Or are we going to part ways? And I was very mindful and open of just if this isn't meant to be, I'm open to the person that I want to actually spend the rest of my life with. And I was doing the same thing as Matt. I was journaling, manifesting, writing all the qualities I envisioned having in my partner. And one day I went on the computer. I was searching for a yoga retreat. Actually, I wanted to go to the yoga retreat so that I could, sit on this decision. It was such a big decision to part ways with the boyfriend that I was currently with and living with. And on that search, as I was searching for the yoga retreat, I got just on a Google search pulled onto a different website, which happened to be Matt's blog, and went down the rabbit hole on Matt's blog. He was a writer all about consciousness and self-realization and, the holographic universe. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, who is this person? I Googled his name. I thought he was like an old man. And then all these stunning pictures of Matt pop up. And I'm like, no way. I think this is my person. And this one Google search of looking for a yoga retreat pulled me, to Matt. And we started talking. Yeah, online.
Yeah, and then kind of from then it just moved like really extremely fast. And basically like a month later, we were like, I moved to Vegas, we moved in, we started a whole new life, and boom, 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 like pretty much married. And now it's like 6 years later, and it was crazy. Total like twin flame stuff.
So total soul connection right there.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like mind blown that happened. I mean, it reminds me a little bit about, like Brian talks about these quantum jump meditations, like seeing like manifesting and seeing that person of your dreams in the future and like kind of bringing them into your reality. And that's like, Matt, that like totally reminds me of somewhat similar of what you did with Ash there, and then making that divine connection is wow. Amazing.
Yeah, especially talking ahead of time to your future partner. That's just definitely deep down the rabbit hole, and so powerful.
Yeah, I love that part because if we're all connected, it's like why do we think that? And it goes for any relationship or any opportunity. Even like I always do things like that where I'm just like, well, technically, all those people, all these opportunities, this relationship, whatever it is we want to call into our experience, they're actually already listening,
And I just want to add on to that because in retrospect, that also goes backwards. Like we were talking to people at our retreat about they really were wanting to move past, a really traumatic event in their life or gain forgiveness and just like move on from the past, but didn't have the courage to actually have the conversation. I was like, you can just talk to them like in your head. Your higher self can connect with their higher self. You can make that peace, through the quantum field. You don't actually have to do it on the physical plane. Like you can meditate on it and have that same healing. So it goes both directions.
Mm-hmm. It's timeless.
That is amazing. I've been doing a lot of quantum field, quantum meditations, and just what you said totally resonates with just everything I love, and just solidifies that. That's so powerful.
Totally.
That all the magic is happening, that we're capable of literally, like when you say that you can talk to the person even though they're not like physically like right next to you, it's so true. Think about like prayer or think about like an offering, it's like you're looking to have these things answered. Like that person's not sitting next to you, you know what I mean? Like you can make it happen and just speak those vibrations out into the universe and bring into your life, or let go of things in your life that you don't need or that you're looking for.
Yeah, the possibilities are just infinite.
Infinite possibilities. I always say that in my yoga classes. I like to say that saying is so true though. It's like I'm worthy of all the amazing things coming my way, and the infinite possibilities within this lifetime. Like I'm worthy of that, and it's all possible.
Amen.
Yeah. I'm soaking it all. I'm going, I think I'm having a spiritual experience in this moment.
That's okay.
like right now, I'm Alice in Wonderland. Like the hole just open underneath the floor I'm sitting in. Like, see you guys. Bye.
See you. There's a meme right there.
Bye. So cool. So you met, and then the yoga couple, like Matt, you were teaching yoga already when you met Ash, or not quite yet?
Vice versa. Ashley was the one who was already teaching. I was, what was I up to? I was deep in yoga philosophy. So I was writing about consciousness and self-realization. So I found yoga through the philosophy first, and then I found asana.
Yeah, I introduced him to like mat practice. Ironically, your name's Matt, but you did not practice on a mat.
I think I saw that meme. There's a meme out there that says, "Hi, I'm Matt, and this is my yoga mat." Something like that. Just goes well. So
Amazing.
Matt, I have a question for you. So at age 21, you were so you met a Buddhist monk, a former Buddhist monk, a yogi, and a Hindu. Like what did they do, or like what happened at that time when you met these individuals? Was it pretty deep? Yeah.
That was like a massive spiritual, just radical shakeup. So I was in naturopathic medical school at the time, and my whole life I had kind of been on this path of figuring out my role as a healer. I've always been drawn to being a healer, and my whole life I had set out to become a doctor, and it went through all these stages of evolution, whether it was like a surgeon or then it was like a DO. And then finally I found naturopathic medicine, and it finally really resonated with me as like a holistic thing. But ironically, I had no idea that the real impact that was going to happen was meeting these colleagues. So these were the other people who were in my class, and they all came from those backgrounds. And yet still we all ended up in this, healing center or this school to become these doctors. And for me, it just radically blew my mind because I was really spiritually hungry at the time, and coming from a Christian background, finally having exposure to these Eastern traditions, I was just obsessed, like total sponge. That's awesome. Just read everything they gave me. They were like, well, have you read this book? Have you read this? And I was like, no, tell me. And before I knew it, I actually cared way less about medicine and becoming a doctor. And I found myself every free second I had, I was asking these spiritual questions and just picking their brain constantly. And it really just redirected my entire focus, because I just became completely obsessed with enlightenment and self-realization, and nothing else really seemed relevant once I had found that knowledge. And so that kind of actually redirected my entire life path, because one of those colleagues and I actually both decided to leave naturopathic medicine together. Wow. Because we both felt that we really were called more towards being spiritual healers, because it really stemmed from this one premise. In naturopathic medicine, they say you treat the cause, not the symptom. Well, my investigator, scientist brain took that to the next level and was like, okay, well, what's the real cause of human suffering? And in medical school, they teach you all these ways to heal the body, but then they also teach you all these things where there's so much more to the mind. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's say the placebo effect. If you can give a patient something completely inert, something that has no actual medical value, but their mere belief, their power of their thought and belief can actually cause a physiological change. Like, that concept alone to me was so mind blowing that I was like, then basically as a doctor, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of just being really good at convincing them. Convincing them that it's okay to heal. Yes. And that what's really happening is the body's healing itself in a lot of ways. So these kind of ideas just were so revolutionary to me that I just was like, well, the real source of human suffering then always goes back to this spiritual set. So it's you can give someone everything they need for a healthy body, but they can still suffer in their mind. You can help someone heal their mind, which I later then went to a therapy, a master's program to be a therapist, but ran into the same issue of, well, now I can give you a healthy body and mind, but if you don't have a spiritual context that it's all within, people are still going to suffer. So you have people who are really intelligent and they're still suffering. You have people who are really healthy, still suffering. And so for me, this kind of quest as a healer from then on, just totally, these three people planted this massive seed of the real truth is all about this self-realization.
Wow.
Wow. That's so much to digest, and that's so much to digest and so good. Go ahead, Pedro.
So good. Yeah, just especially when you're in naturopathic school and talking to these individuals, and then decided, to continue on a different path completely. I mean, that's something really, really, really just impacted you there.
Oh yeah, it was I'll never forget that time, and how We had this really peculiar moment when we actually all first met. And it was like this trippiest spiritual connection where we all felt like we had been doing this for multiple lifetimes.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, because we were all attached at the hip. I mean, in school, you're with each other all day, every day. We pretty much spent 12 hours a day with each other. You know, it was so gnarly, the amount of studying and information you're trying to digest. And they were like, we were a study group, so we were constantly together, and we all had a mysterious kind of feeling to it. We all kind of knew there was some soul group going on, and they're really special people to me.
That's awesome. Because that quantum field right there, it's just like you were open, you were ready, and then the people came.
Absolutely.
And then you take the leap. And then you made it happen.
And I did.
And you made it happen.
Leaving school was a massive leap.
Sure. And then there's like no, you can't, I always remember this quote from a yoga class I took. It's like, once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you know that thing, that there's more healing that needs to be done for this person to actually feel better, just using you as an example, it's like, I can't just treat the symptoms for this person because I'm not going to be doing like for me, it would be like, I'm not giving the most that I can to this person. Like there's a level of integrity that I have that I want to be able to help them heal physically, mentally, spiritually. Like, and once you know that, it's like, I got to do it all. Like how I got to figure it out, and you did that.
Exactly.
And then Ash, so you studied Eastern philosophy and Oriental medicine? Is that?
I actually went to UNLV and studied in the Asian Studies program. So it was all just Eastern philosophy. And I was really fortunate to get to pick a special topic of interest to focus on. And I got approved to actually study yoga. So I got to do a lot of personal projects on yoga philosophy and just studying the history and the entire history of yoga philosophy, which led me to Gary Fairstein. He's basically a historian of yoga. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. He's passed a few years ago, but he was an Indonologist from, I think, Germany, and just had a doctorate degree in the history of India. So I just went all the way back to the beginning roots of where did yoga come from? What was the purpose? What was going on through the different eras of yoga, and how has it evolved into what it is today? But what led me to that was actually just self-exploring on my own, trying to figure out, who's God and what's the purpose of this life. My mom was a drug addict, and from an early age, I was really curious about natural healing, alternative methods, spirituality, and just kind of sought out different religions on my own. I went to all these different churches. I was going to the Buddhist temple. I was going to the Hare Krishnas on Wednesdays. I was going to the Jehovah Witnesses on Sundays. I was just everywhere as a teenager. It was crazy. And eventually landed myself in a Jivamukti yoga class, and we were chanting and laid in Shavasana for the first time after I had been on this search for, several years, and felt that aha moment that we all have when we first have Shavasana. Yes. And it just changed me forever. And that's when I was like, you know what, this is the path for me. I'm going to study this. I'm going to dive into it. And then even, went into school and college to continue studying it more professionally.
That's amazing. And that's amazing to know the yoga history, especially, how yoga is today, which is awesome that there's all different types of yoga, but it's like sometimes we lose the history of where yoga started from and what it's really about.
Yeah. And there's so many.
What was that guy's name again?
Gary Fairstein.
Awesome. Yeah. We're gonna have to put that in the show notes.
1,000%.
I need to go down the rabbit hole with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Totally.
Much, much appreciated. All right, so I have a question for you, Matt. So we've talked about philosophy. We've gotten to the point you guys are together. Things are happening. Shift is definitely on. So I want to kind of get into the inner work the book. Obviously, you guys had the podcast, and that kind of got to the book. I was looking at your Instagram at the Yoga Couple, and I came across the post of yours. It was of you, Matt. I believe you wrote the whole thing. It was your picture, just you. And it was talking about a realization that you had at a camping trip into the jungle, and to assume one of the valleys in Hawaii, and that how you realized that the bliss and the connection that you were feeling in the nature is actually no different than the bliss and connection that you feel in like a normal day-to-day life. And that the people that are trying to escape, to go to the yoga studio or to the temple or to whatever, to have that feeling, like the feeling isn't in the temple or the yoga studio. The feeling resides within you, and it's something that you can access at any time. And it was like, when I read the post, it really resonated with me as to like what I'm working on in my personal journey. So can you tell me a little bit about that post? Do you remember that post specifically? Let me ask you that question. Do you remember that?
Absolutely, I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And did that spawn the Inner Work book, or did that spawn like it speeding up faster, or were you guys kind of already working on it? Like, can you reflect on that for us? Because I think that's a super amazing thing that you wrote on that post.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, the book, I don't think we had officially well, the book has been this evolving thing, really. So it's kind of hard to say, but no, that was after we had just lost our home a couple months before that from the volcanic eruption in Hawaii. And I think a friend and I think we were kind of going into the jungle kind of for a retreat, kind of to get away. And the friend I went with, really, he has this cool spot that's like super hidden and secluded. And so we kind of just went, and we were in there for a few days. And one of the things that really hit me while I was in there is the friend I was with really likes to connect and a lot of the time with nature and to get away. And so that was kind of the topic of a lot of our discussion and our time together. And so as I was like in there, I was having I was really paying attention to, yes, I agree. Like my whole life, I've always been super, drawn to nature. I've been fortunate enough to grow up completely connected to nature and never really lived in cities much. And so for me, I totally get it. I get that, getting away or getting out of whatever our mundane thing might be does have this sense of relief, like gratitude, the beauty. But then as I was in there, I realized this is amazing, but I'm noticing that what is actually amazing, it's not the actual external I was finding. I was like, well, technically though, I feel this good when I'm at home. I feel this good when I'm like working with Ashley, or if I'm working and doing other things. This feeling I'm having out here in the jungle, out here thinking that this is something special, the specialness is actually just coming from within me. And so that post, I think I actually wrote when I got home, because when I got home and I went back to work, like, right back to the normal type of things that you do throughout your, normal week.
Right.
I'm like grocery shopping, I'm doing errands and working, doing all these mundane tasks. And I realized like the joy of life that I feel off, disconnected and out in the wilderness is no different. And I think that's what really hit me for the first time with that post, is because I am a professional, or was, I should really clarify that. I was such a good escapist. I was that person. I used to love to be like, I need to get away. I need to go up into the forest. I need to go surfing. I need this. And Ashley would always tell me, actually, she'd be like, cool. So you're going to get there, but then what? And so like one of my old things over like the last decade was I would always have to go on surf trips, and I'd be like, I need to go surfing. But ironically, every time I would get in the water, as soon as I'd get in the water, I'd be like, oh, like that was it. Like you're in the water, now you're here. Like what? There was no magic to it. And so it took me all these years of doing that, all these years of running away, thinking that my gratitude and my joy was somewhere else. And then finally it hit me on this trip when I finally just was like, holy, like, wow, you guys, like it doesn't matter. Gratitude is gratitude no matter how it is evoked.
Yes.
And
yes.
if we can you can wake up 100%. In the morning and trip out on gratitude just as much as waking up in some campsite in some like epic place that like you think is your perfect, getaway. That gratitude is the exact same. And it actually is not circumstantial. It's an internal choice
100%.
To just appreciate life. That's all it is. It's just a decision to appreciate life. And you could be doing anything and you could elicit that.
So true.
Wow. That is so true. Ash, when you kind of put that seed into Matt's head about like, okay, but what happens when you get there? Matt, do you think that helped? Or I guess Ashley, when you were saying those things, was it from, I'm assuming obviously it was from a place of love to get him to realize like, yo, it's within you.
Right.
I'm assuming that was like your intention behind it the whole time, yeah?
Yeah, it's been kind of a journey because like Matt did come from more of a Western psychology background. And then I come from like the Eastern background. So it was like this merging of our ideas together because he really understands things like scientifically and moving into this like new awareness of this, these Eastern teachings, like, that it's all right here. It's all right now. That was all. And even just like effort and non-attachment, these things that are like in the Yoga Sutras. These were all like new concepts for Matt to not just conceptualize, but to actually live and be. And I remember like the first time really talking about this, he moved to Las Vegas and it was a desert. He's so used to being in his ideal circumstances at the ocean, and then pulling him out of that and taking him to the desert. He was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get into nature. Like he just couldn't manage to be in the city for more than a week without losing his shit, basically. And we would just like argue because he would just be so unhappy, but there was nothing wrong. It was just that he felt he was missing, this dream life of his past. He felt like it got taken from him. And so he would want to run away. And I remember like getting in the car and being like, okay, let's go to the mountains. We're driving to the mountains. And I don't even know, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours from our place. And we get all the way to the mountain. We're having this conversation like the entire time about, it's all within you, like be here now and all of these things. And exactly as he explained, like this evoking of gratitude is an internal choice. And we got up to like the turn into the mountains. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. And he just like turned around. He's like, I get it. And like, we just went home back into the city and had an amazing, weekend, but it just came from this shift of internal choice. Like, am I going to choose to focus on everything I hate, or am I going to choose to focus on everything I love? And what's really ironic about that now is like, I think it's kind of flipped. And I was the one who initially was like teaching Matt that, and I had really gotten it. And now I think Matt's super expert at this. And I sometimes am forgetting, and he's now reteaching and reminding me, which is kind of like that balance of partnership. So it's really nice.
That's amazing. Yeah, the teacher becomes the student, right?
Yeah, I need this
reminder. Full circle.
Totally.
That's so true. It's so true. That's that good partnership, that good balance.
I can't believe you just said like, turn around, let's go back.
Yeah, we did that a couple of times, actually. There were a couple of trips when we were living there where I was like, all right, we got to go. And then we would drive for like 20 minutes. I'd be like, no, we're turning around. No, we don't need to do this.
No escapism.
That's so good. Okay, so you went from Vegas. You were going to come, obviously you guys have traveled a bit, and then you end up in Hawaii. The volcano, you were in Leilani Estates. I know we talked about that when I was in the podcast, and you just mentioned that also, Matt, that the volcano came and took your home where you guys were staying in Leilani. And then you've obviously resettled into a new space into a similar area down there in Pahoa. But now you've made this amazing book. You're doing these amazing retreats. So can you tell us a little bit about that book, that journey to the book, and kind of like, I know that's like the center of the rabbit hole for me, and I can't wait to hear like your excitement about how awesome it is, what you're doing with it.
Cool. So the book was really spawned out of that quest, that healing quest that I mentioned earlier. And just like when Ash met me, I've been writing about this for a really long time. When I discovered my teacher, Dr. David Hawkins, it really blew my mind when I learned all about the path to enlightenment and the levels of consciousness, there's like these themes that we find ourselves as humans universally going through. And so we'll get into that in a minute. But this quest for healing and kind of finding the real root of human suffering, and kind of like the Buddhist teaching of like, what do we need to remove? What do we need to get out of the way so we can all feel that innate bliss that we know is within us because we've all tasted it from time to time. And so the inner work was Ashley and I's kind of merging of all of this wisdom of the East and the West to help people see their shadows, heal those shadows, and release them so that we can unlock our full potential. And in order to do that, we bring in the science and my kind of psychology, quantum physics type of background, and we look at how the science behind why meditation works, why thoughts are not actually you. Who are you actually? What is your true identity? And how can we remove the layers that we've accumulated that are blocking us from living in our full potential, which is innocent, joy, peace, like contentment. And just in yoga, they would say Satchitananda, like existence, consciousness, bliss, like that unperturbed,
I love that one.
Beautiful awareness that just appreciates and loves in its wholeness. And so the inner work we specifically want to look at as humans, we have these themes of consciousness. It's, in other words, like the lenses in which we view reality. And so in healing, it's really specific to the person. So like we want to really make sure that like you can't just say to anyone, hey, go ahead and meditate. Like let's say someone who has extreme trauma and they're really struggling with a lot of shame and unworthiness, prescribing them and saying like, hey, you should just, meditate, watch your thoughts and realize they're not you. And then, you're going to be on your path. Like for them, that's going to be like really intense. That's going to be really intense to listen to those thoughts and to be paying attention to them. And it's going to be really, there's so much they need to do before they can go there. And so one of the things I've noticed in my observations of the healing modalities is that there's this element missing of a progression of how, as universal to all humanity, we have to go through these themes of consciousness. And so the themes of consciousness are these lenses. So when we have a lens of, say, shame, we'll just use that example. It's not the external reality that is shameful. It's just how we are perceiving it. So like, it's like we're putting on rose-colored glasses and saying, whoa, everything's got this like pink tint to it. And then we're like, well, no, it doesn't. You just have those glasses. You need to take them off. So someone in shame, for example, in a theme of consciousness of shame, they're going around and they perceive, say, everything as proof of how unworthy they are and proof that no one loves them, or proof that like, well, I guess I really am this. And so even the smallest like encounter can kind of reinforce that, right? So the inner work is a process of kind of addressing whatever our specific theme is. And there's all these different themes that we'll find ourselves in. There's like pride, for example, or maybe there's like courage, someone who's really attracted to constantly needing to like prove their courage and be bold. Or maybe someone like in reason and logic, someone extremely rational. And they're so rational, in fact, that like they become really rigid and objective about everything. So these themes, as we find in the book, they're very specific to our human evolution. And we need to kind of know where we're at so that we can know what's next. What do we need to be working on next? Because all of our progress, all of our healing is very, very different. The inner work that I need to be doing is very different from Ashley's inner work, for example. And Ashley's inner work is very different from mine, and same for you guys. So the inner work is really about giving it to the individual to re-empower themselves to really take their healing back into their own hands and discover where it is they are in their progression and where they can work to heal and how to do that.
Love it. I love it a lot.
It's so true. It's so true. Diving deep and going inside. It's like, especially these days, we want to find external things. I think I heard something that we use. So our brains are super powerful. Our brains can heal ourselves, and we use 95% of that for external stuff. So we only have like 5% that we can actually heal ourselves internally. So that's why it's awesome with your book, internal, going inside, going down the rabbit hole,
deep dive within, deep dive within,
and finding those things.
Peeling back the layers of the onion, to come to the seed, kind of thing for yourself. Absolutely. I love the quote on the back. And I'm curious to know which one of you wrote it on there, that if you are a human and you want to be happy, this book is for you.
I love that.
Is that a combined adventure? Whose is that?
That's me, because it's kind of funny. Like Matt, obviously he's very academic, and so like the elaborate description above that, like really like how he just did, like he went into full detail of like what the inner work is. And then I'm like, in other words, if you're a human, you want to be happy. Like
that's awesome.
And that is our
so the top and the back that's the yin and the yang right there. I mean, that's the yin and the yang. That's like a perfect example of like balance. That is so true. And I didn't even, now that I'm picturing the back cover in my head, and the top, and there's kind of like that jagged split to go to the part where the other little quote is, like, that is so... I just had like a mind-blowing experience by myself in my room, so it's just amazing.
Yeah, the book cover was really intentional. Like the face, he's got this half smirk on the front of the cover, because that's the face of like not the type of happiness that we're so conditioned to believe is happiness, which is like really that seeking of constant pleasure and instant gratification and like just radical excitement all the time. It's like that half smirk of just like inner contentment that is permanent. And that's why he's kind of just like half smirking on the front. And then obviously you've got like the universe coming out of his mind, because it's the entire universe is an internal experience. And then you've got the yin and the yang of the black and the white.
Yes. So intentional. Like it's so intentional. Like everything about that is intentional and purposeful. And that's why it's amazing. That's why.
Yeah. I love all the quotes. Like all the quotes that are in there are just so like perfect. Like there's a Carl Jung quote. I wrote it down. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. I mean, you got some amazing quotes in that book.
Totally.
So that's another Ashley inspiration.
Oh yeah, really? That one?
Yeah, that was her idea to add all those, and I'm really glad we did that, because it is you're not like so many people comment on that, and I love that turned out to be such a beautiful addition.
Yeah, amazing. The other Rummy quote I wrote down. There's a Rummy quote I wrote down. The desire to know your own soul will end all other desires. I mean that was just powerful. Just. Amazing quotes in there. I'm just saying those are like every single one of the quotes that I read in there.
That's awesome.
Just on point for.
And that really like summarizes the inner work too, because it's all about like the simplest way to put it is like pay attention. Everything is is revealing something within us, and that's what it's really all about, is drawing awareness back within to really pay attention to our own internal experience.
And my favorite part about the inner work, which I always say because I think it's so important, is that the real purpose of it is to understand that you're on this eternal journey. It's never ending. It's never beginning. And you're okay where you are. And I think that us as spiritual seekers, as true seekers, we can be so hard on ourselves because we know that we're ultimately trying to get to unconditional love. We know that we're trying to get to that, final abode of like enlightenment, right? And we can be so hard on ourselves when we're angry or we're feeling, depressed or hopeless, or we have regret and pain and we're like, I know better. Why am I doing that? Like, I know better. I should just be positive all the time. And it's like, that's not how it works. We have to go through the stages of the human condition, and it's all leading to the same place. And I always think of this like car driving at night with the headlights on and you can only see a couple 100 feet in front of you. And the true love, freedom, lasting happiness, enlightenment is the final destination that you're driving through. But you're not just going to like teleport there. You have to keep driving in the dark, and you have to trust that the car and the lights are going to guide you to the next 100 feet. And all you have to know is what that next 100 feet is. And the themes of consciousness in the book take you on a journey from shame into grief, you know, into anger, into pride, into courage, then into willingness, you know, then into love. Like it's like this progression, and it's okay to be in every single stage of the process. It's okay to be in anger, because if you're someone who is sexually abused or have some crazy traumatic experience that you've come out of, anger is really appropriate for you. Like that is a few stages up from feeling suicidal, to feel something again and to have that feeling of wrath. Like that's actually a lot of progress, and it's leading you somewhere. So just my biggest thing to emphasize when people are reading this book is it should feel very comforting to allow yourself to just be in whatever theme of consciousness you're in. It's okay to be there. Let yourself be in that phase, because just like the headlights, you will naturally be guided onward and upward.
I love that. It's so true. It's 100% okay to be where you're at in the process. That's where you're at. Just like in yoga, just in meditation, that's where you're at for the day.
Yeah. And it changes. Like, I think about that also. It's like, you know, in yoga, like you said, Brian, like the yoga meets you where you are. And when you're ready to open up that, when you're ready to peel the first layer of the onion back, like that's where you start. You know, the journey begins like wherever you are, and then you just take it from there. You know, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're 10 steps behind, or even if you are 10 steps ahead. You know, just start wherever you are, and then take the process you know, one step at a time, one breath at a time, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's funny, in the book, we have the themes of consciousness kind of in a linear ladder. And one of the things I want to amend in the book is I want to turn the themes of consciousness into a circle, because I think that we're hard on ourselves for going backwards. Like if you were in such a positive frequency last week and then now you're not, you're like hard on yourself because you're like, what happened to me? Like, why am I going backward? I should just be going forward. Right. And that's not how life works. Life's this circle. It's a circle of life. Like it's a never ending, infinite cycle. And I think we go through the themes of consciousness in a cycle, and that's okay. It's okay to keep going in circles. And I'm more like a spiral. So yeah.
Spiral down the rabbit, as long as it's down the rabbit hole. Right? Yeah. Spiral down the rabbit hole. Well, so definitely related to this book, chapter 3, the ego persona's formation, how we are shaped as children, which I've been doing a lot of like deep diving into brainwave states, you know, delta, theta, alpha, beta, and then gamma. And in terms of meditation, you know, in meditation, it's the theta and the alpha where you're in that flow state. And then if you're deep meditation, you're in that delta. So as for kids, which was amazing with this ego formation, you know, kids from 2 to 6, they're in that theta brain state, which that's where the subconscious is. That's where like learning is. And that's where most of the habits are just built right there from like 2 to 6. And then after that, you're getting into alpha, the brain's developing more. So it's just touch on just the ego's persona, the formation of that ego as a child, like just some of the things that'll come up too with going in that inner work.
Yeah. So Matt and I are both really fortunate to have both been teachers. And I was a preschool teacher for like 5 years, and Matt's taught all different grades in elementary school. So we've really been firsthand, like on the floor with watching that process unfold, especially with the preschoolers. And they're just pure, like honestly, like my favorite part of my life so far has been being a preschool teacher, because I'm just in the frequency of like 36 like innocent, pure bliss frequencies all day long. Right. And they're just pure light, and they're so susceptible to the conditioning of the world at that age. And I think something that wasn't as popularized as it's becoming now is that us as adults, teachers, parents, it's our responsibility to be mindful of the conditioning that we are modeling to children, because children are not going to do what you say, they're going to do what they see. And they are going to become what they are modeled. So
Yes.
us as adults and the direct influences that on them in their lives really have this responsibility to be mindful of how we are impacting the conditioning of the brain, because they're creating these neuron connections. Those are the formative years of creating those neural webs that are going to be the terrain of their reality. Like you've got this brain that becomes the terrain of their reality, and we are all responsible for that kind of development of that terrain. So being mindful, like when a child makes a mistake, to not shame them or make them feel stupid or silly or that they should have known better. Like those little nuances of just expecting that they should have known better really form a neuron connection. They're like, I should know better. I'm not good enough. Like all of these things get formed like really early on. And you have anything to say on that, Matt?
Yeah, and to tie it into the themes of consciousness, like actually just gave a perfect example. This is how we become entrained into these themes of consciousness. Themes of consciousness you can think of as like frequencies or energy patterns. And so what Ashley just described is the classic one of guilt and judgment. And that is where so many of us humans inherited our guilt. All it took was a parent a couple times being like, you idiot, you stupid, why'd you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You should have known better. Like all those little catchphrases that we're all very familiar with. Those are so powerful, and we might think they're very just casual, or we were maybe angry in the moment, but to a child that carries the weight of an entire blueprint. It's a neuron blueprint that now their brain is going to start to form. That's their version of reality. Like it's a huge impact, and we really have to kind of be aware of these themes.
And most of our conditioning as adults, like now that we're, waking up and like going back and doing this child shadow work and looking at like, why do I think the way I think? A lot of it comes from those formative years, like you just said, between ages 2 and 6. And we're actually as adults now going back and undoing those neuron blueprints that were created way back when we weren't even really conscious of what we were being conditioned with.
So true. So true. It isn't just the journey of, going inside and like enlightenment. It's like, okay, you're a baby, and then you're a child, you're growing up, and then you're an adult, and then you're thinking all external world. And then it's just from everything I've seen, read in your book, that it's like, okay, you're an adult. Now it's like, get back to that childlike state, which, that's just all internal. That's all inside. Like being a child is just really, it's all inside you. Imagination, dreaming. There's reality, and you can pretty much create anything in a child's imagination. So it's just kind of mind-blowing to think that way. It's like you live to go back to be a child, like you're
right.
And that's that full circle, right? Like we're actually, maybe we're not moving forward. Maybe we're moving back. Maybe we're undoing. Maybe we're returning to that innocence of a child.
Right. And ideally, like as humanity evolves, that process doesn't necessarily even need to happen. Ideally, if we were all being raised by, sages and enlightened beings, then obviously we wouldn't have to do the undoing, right? So eventually, like with each generation, we're progressing in this ability to not have to undo as much.
Right, because we're stopping the conditioning process before it even takes place by waking up.
Right.
So true. So true.
Amazing. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, so chapter 5, one of the things I wrote down is silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So this one is really like hits home for me. I'm a pretty anxious, overthinking type person naturally. That's like my conditioning that I'm undoing. And I don't know even where I heard either that line or something very similar to it, but it really hit home for me because the thinking mind is running on programs like we just talked about. The brain is this web of neuron connections that are really just the conditioning of past experiences. And the irony is, in the Western world, we've really been taught to rely on the thinking brain as this source of truth and rationality, and that we can really depend on it. But you're talking about the quantum field, and there's infinite possibilities. The brain doesn't have that. The brain is hardwired, conditioned on past experiences. So basically, if you want to break out of this cycle of pain and suffering, or you want to find a new idea, or you really want an answer to this deep yearning question, we really ought to not depend on the conditioning of the brain to provide us with something new, because it's literally unable to do that. It just repeats cycles of the past. It's like a computer program. If we want something new, we need to open up space and, tap into that quantum field through silence. And through silence, we're inviting that antenna to pick up something new, because we're really just magnets. We're just magnets. We're just receivers. And if we want something new, we ought to just become silent and still and allow it to be revealed to us, not through overthinking.
I love that so much. Just the way you said it, it's I don't perfect. Know. Yeah, it was perfect. Perfect. Just open up another door of possibilities. But it's true. Like, our brains can only think it's only in this area. It's not quantum.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Just to remind ourselves of this, because the habit is so strong and we've been conditioned, since grade school to use our brains to problem solve.
To figure it out. Don't bother me. I'm thinking.
Figure it all out.
Right.
I'm thinking.
I know, right? Go figure it out. I should just go sit down somewhere and be quiet. That's what you're telling me to do?
Yes. And so
do work. Yeah.
Conditioning is just so strong. So the invitation is to be mindful of that conditioning as it arises and to do something different. And that is to stop thinking, to go sit in silence instead, and know that it's not going to feel natural. It's not going to feel comfortable. You're going to feel like you're wasting time. You're going to feel like you should, quote unquote, be being productive and doing. So know that it's not going to feel natural, but you do it anyways. Just try it. And eventually that conditioning will replace the limiting one.
So true. And it's almost like the doing too, just how you were saying, and Matt was saying how he wanted to go to the beach, and then when go surfing, and then once you got surfing, you're like, whoa, I'm surfing, and it's not like, okay, what next? Right? It's like the drive, the journey, just to do something. But then you get there, like, okay, where's my next thing? And I struggle with that too. It's like, okay, I got to do this, and this, and this. And it's like, there's no just being and like embracing the process. True. It's good stuff.
I had a little bit of that experience today personally, where I was going to practice yoga this morning, and I 5:30, and my son decided to wake up at 5:45, so I got 10 minutes in, and I was like, man, that's my time to practice, and I didn't get to do it today. So then I took him to school, I took my other son to camp, and I come back home, and it's 9:00, and I'm like, all right, I should plug in and start doing things, start working and things. And then I was like, but doing the yoga, that is the work. The yoga is the work. All the other stuff is going to work itself out on its own. As long as you just do the yoga, the rest of it's going to take care of itself. So I sat down, I rolled out a mat, I did a practice, and I felt so much more clear than if I would have just jumped into my phone and started doing work. You know what I mean?
You're so right.
So true. It's getting connected.
I mean, but it's so easy to get caught up in the phone and that, and then it's just so easy. But, thankfully, with awareness, we're, as we work to peel back the layers of the onion, do the inner work, connect with ourselves, and know that all the other stuff will take care of itself. As long as we're doing the things that are on our path, that's really powerful, super powerful.
Yeah. And how do you two find balance on, you got social media, you got your website, book, and then, the retreats. How do you find balance just to make sure you nurture that spiritual side, but then, the business side as well?
Oh, good question, Brian.
Yeah, I think I don't think we have figured it out, to be honest. I think that's what we're doing. We're in it,
ongoing.
and it's ongoing, and it's a constant coming back and returning. And I think it's really nice to have a partner who's on that same path, because when one of us strays, we can kind of pull the other one back, and, hey, like, you really need to take a break, or like, you deserve it. Like, it's okay. Like, or also like, let me just tap out and you take over type of thing, because it's really hard. It's really hard. The conditioning is really strong. And I'm going to be the first to admit that, me and Matt have not undone all of our conditioning. We're in that process of trusting in the universe and letting go of all these beliefs of lack. So that pressure to work, that we were all conditioned to do is super strong.
Yeah. And I would say, I guess what we figured out is that it really just comes down to communication. So whether it's not that there's ever been one thing in particular that's worked, but just to kind of affirm what Ashley's saying is, since it is always ongoing and it's constantly changing and flowing, it just comes down to how to communicate our needs. And, like, if I'm getting too overwhelmed or stressed, being able to own that and then say it, and then be like, hey, I need to go take a walk, or I need to meditate. And then going about the tricks, the actual things, the meditations, the walks, the sits, the yoga practices, whatever it is we need. I think they have time and place. And I think the one big key factor, though, is just being really honest and clear in communicating, and then being able to handle that honest communication, because then that's another element to it is, being able to receive those, the pressures of now you have to deal with stopping work, or your partner slowing down, or whatever, all the circumstances of life. So it's just like that ongoing awareness.
And I think that is our practice, like to be in this relationship together, to be in this day-to-day, like, balancing act. That is our practice. And we are essentially practicing every day through our relationship and our work life relationship balance. And, that is it. We're in it. We're in it right now.
We're in it right now as we speak on the podcast. In it right now.
Literally right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about, so you have the balance that you're working on, and take us into the retreat, because I know that the retreat is like definitely coming back to this, to center, to sitting with discomfort, to owning your shit, and, letting go and moving on. So can you take us from did the book spawn the retreat, or were you always going to do this kind of retreat? Curious about that. And then tell us into the retreat.
We always wanted to do a retreat, but I don't think that we knew that it was going to turn into a real life hero's journey of shadow work. I think we always envisioned it being just like more of like a healing yoga retreat, right? And we kind of went into the retreat with that in mind. And we had a little bit of inner work like sprinkled throughout the retreat schedule. But on the very first day, we did our first inner work circle, and we didn't know like how people were going to receive it. We didn't know if people were going to be uncomfortable. They were going to go all in. We had no expectations. The first inner work circle was day one. Reveal all of your deepest, darkest shadows, anything you're ashamed of, anything you're embarrassed about, any secrets, traumas that have happened to you, things you've never told, people in your family, even like we're going to say it in front of a group of strangers right now. And
Oh, wow.
The first girl that went.
I got chills. I have so many chills
I
right
just
now.
got sweaty.
Yeah, there's like,
Seriously.
just to set the scene, there's like candles lit. They're holding like a 6-foot staff. They walk into the middle of the circle. There's like a little, flames everywhere with all the candles.
Courage. We've been prepping them with courage talks all day.
It's intense energy. There's like drumming and
like epic.
The first girl she owns it.
Oh
and
my God.
The things that she lays out for us are so personal and so dark, and we're just like, damn. And then the second guy went and he was like, well, I'm not gonna like let this guy, I have to say my thing now, because this little girl did it, and he's like this giant dude, and then he goes, and then the next person, and it's like everybody's just like, their hearts are getting hit, and me and Matt just looked at each other like, oh my, they're ready, they want it, they want to go deep. And we went back to our rooms that night after a really intense inner work circle, and we restructured the entire retreat to do more shadow processing, more partner work, more childhood unmet needs work, and we basically rewrote the whole retreat like that day.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
that night.
Yeah.
That night.
Yeah. When we just emphasized it.
Go ahead, man.
Because what we really did is like, okay, so like I said, the first day was courage. So we did pattern the retreat after the book. So we patterned a lot of the retreat after the liberating themes. And so we literally take the participants through a hero's journey. And so there's a reason why we all resonate with the hero's journey, is because it is universal to humanity. It's in our subconscious.
And every single yoga class we had scheduled, every single excursion, they're all
there's a theme.
Physical experiences to initiate them. Yeah, and they all correlate into a final group experience that is really going to push and challenge them. And we really just took the emphasis off of the physical yoga and moved it totally onto the inner work. And I think it was just this life transforming experience for every single person there, whether they came with the intention to heal or not. They left completely transformed and
healed.
I mean, even people who showed up that were not expecting to do this type of work.
A couple people showed up completely closed off, had no idea, and yet they left smiling and open and full of love.
And dealt with the things that they didn't know that they were going to do it.
And that was really the beauty of seeing that like this works and it connects and we're onto something here and there's truth. And we had people of all ages and all different backgrounds, and it was just incredible to see that the hero's journey is within all of us. And that's why the first night is courage, because the hero's journey is, you have to be taken out of your normal reality to face your shadow and to shatter your old self, shatter your old reality so that you can reemerge the victorious hero, right? And so that's really the energy of the retreat, is to take you on this journey and reveal the greatness of who you really are and what you were here to do. We literally have processes in the retreat where we help you find your life purpose, so that you go home with like that epic hero energy of like, I am here for this exact reason, and I know who I am, and I know what my gifts are, and I know what my work is, and I know what to be aware of, and I know that I can do it. And that's like the crescendo, it's like, and I can do it, and I'm here to do it, and it's going to be epic. My life is meant to be epic. And to see that transformation happen in people that came with so much grief and pain and leave with like hope and invigoration again, it's just like it was the most rewarding, crazy experience for us, because we had no expectation. We had no idea that people were going to be that open to it. And in the process of doing this retreat, we realized like, this is what Ash and I were born to do. Like, being able to facilitate something like that, most people would be terrified of. And yet we felt invigorated by it. And so that's why, like, for us, the retreat really helped us discover our purpose, because we were like, wow, we were like meant to do this.
And the retreat really revealed that it didn't matter how old you were, where you had come from, or what you had been through, because we had people for literally all different ages. And we had people who were going through completely different things, from like serious sexual abuse to the dying of their, partner in their marriage, to overcoming, cancer. Like we had, it did not matter what you had come from. There was an opportunity for you to heal, overcome it, and then use it as, the fanning of the fire of your own inner flame.
Sounds incredible. I've legit goosebumps right now.
Seriously.
Especially when you said shatter your older self. Like, I just got the visual.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like,
I had
awesome. Well, where can people find these retreats? Where can they go? Because I'm sure people listening right now have goosebumps as well, and they're like, I need to go to this retreat. Where do they go?
Please join us. We would love to have you. You can go on to theyogacouple.com, and all of the information is there for the retreat and the book.
And the next one is over New Year's. What better time to reset and rebirth? So that's going to be really fun. The next one is in Hawaii over New Year's, and it's theyogacouple.com.
Oh, heck yeah. Hawaii and New Year's. I mean, that's just good combo right there.
It sounds like a deep rabbit hole time. Can't wait.
2020.
Sounds so cool. When you guys were describing the staff and the girl in the middle of the room and the drums and the candles, I was like feeling myself there, like literally there in that moment with the sweat and the goosebumps that Brian's talking about. I mean, I was like, oh my God, what is she going to lay on me right now? What's coming out of her mouth? Because she sets the tone. She sets the tone for everybody. She set the tone for everybody, So did you guys select her to go first, or did she pick herself to go first?
And it's important too, like we model everything before anything goes. So we create that container first. And so we kind of give the invite, like we always model. And I want to make sure everyone listening knows, like, we don't just like be like, hey, you go. Like, we model every process first. So we model everything first. But the tricky thing we didn't know though is we're going to reveal ourselves. Will she take the invite? And she just happened to be sitting next to me.
Right.
And she was like, I'll do it. And she was stoked.
She was the smallest, most innocent, sweetest girl there, and the courage that she displayed. I mean, we had guys in this room that were like 6'3", like football dudes, and she just went in the middle and was like, boom, and said things that people were just staring at her like, I cannot believe you just said that, admitted that, and owned that.
Epic.
And we were just like, damn, if she's gonna do it, then we all better step up.
Everybody. Yeah, we're going in. Everybody's going down. Everybody's going to lay it out.
Yeah.
That is amazing. What a powerful healing experience. I have personal experience on the Big Island, on the Hilo side, 20, 30 minutes away from where this retreat center is, that was spared by Pele, by the lava, like literally spared by the lava. This place is magical. I wish I could go in January. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to manifest it right now. I'm throwing it out to the universe right here in this moment. Like, I'm going. Like, I'm throwing it out there.
That would
get
be awesome.
Me there. Get me there. I feel so drawn to the both of you. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share with us your insights on yoga, meditation, spirituality, the inner work, the rabbit hole. It has been an amazing time. I do have a very important question for Matt before we wrap this thing up here in a minute. Matt, do you ever wear a shirt? Like, do you ever wear a shirt, bro?
Not in Hawaii, no.
That's a life, man. That's a life.
Because all these pictures I see, it's like, you guys are just so beautiful. I mean, you two are so
You're like
beautiful.
the best tans in history.
The best tans in history.
Best tans.
Filters on those.
And you're like almost the same tan, too.
That's why
that has to be 1 in a million right there.
We'll give that to Hawaii. We can't take credit for that.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, this has been so inspirational. This has been like, when I was listening to you, both of you speak, I really felt so connected, so in the moment, so present. Like your presence really brought me right into the moment, and I could really feel the energy of what you guys are offering and the value that you're bringing to the yoga community, way beyond the asana, way beyond. And the asana is amazing, but there's so, and we didn't even really, we talked about asana for like 38 seconds, and there was so much more to the yoga practice. There's so much more than like yoga challenge on Instagram. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's so much more to the aspect of yoga and mindfulness. And I think you've really are really honing in on that, owning your craft. And I loved what you said at the last part about the retreat, about how by that first night when everything shifted, you rewrote the retreat, you based the retreat off the energy in the room. That's a special talent. That like when you teach yoga, Ash, Matt, you guys both know when you show up to teach yoga, you never know who's coming. So you don't know what, like maybe you have an idea of what you want to teach, but it doesn't always go down that way. You guys know that. And same with the retreat, clearly. But you were able to hold the space, and that really unveiled like what your purpose, like what you feel in this moment in your heart, like your purpose is to share this inner work with the whole world. So thank you so much for sharing your lights. Seriously.
Thank you so much. And having to step back and rewriting that whole retreat, like just shows like you're there to help people. It's not your agenda. Like, hey, this is my retreat. This is how we're doing it. And people have to, it's how can we help other people? And I feel that on your Instagram and on your website too. I mean, just with social media, and there's so many people out there and so many people in the yoga community, like it's really like, can you feel their vibe? Can you feel, are they genuine? Are they providing value? Are they looking to help people? And I feel 100% you are here in this world to just spread love and help people. And we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so grateful for both of you, and we're just so grateful to be able to spend this time chatting and getting to know you both as well. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
So fun. All right, family. So you guys make sure you check them out on the Yoga Double. What the hell? YogaCouple.com. Check them out. All their amazing things. Check out the book. Check out the retreat. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Yogi Show. We'll be back next week. We're signing off. Thanks so much, Matt and Ash. We appreciate you beyond words.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Namaste.
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 Music that you're hearing in The Yogi Show is happily produced by Momentology.